The shadows of dusk crept over the edges of Eliza's bruised skin as she huddled against the wall of her modest home on the outskirts of Silver Creek, Wyoming Territory, 1876. Her fingers trembled as they traced the purple stain spreading across her cheekbone, a painful gift from Vernon Lawson, the man she'd made the grievous error of marrying 3 years prior. Eliza Lawson, née Lambert, had once been known for her radiant smile and melodious laughter that echoed through the mercantile, where she'd worked since arriving from Boston at 18. Now, at 23, she barely recognized the hollow-eyed woman who stared back at her from the cracked mirror hanging crookedly on the wall. Vernon's latest outburst had been triggered by nothing more than a spilled glass of whiskey, but the consequences had been swift and brutal. The distant sound of hoofbeats sent a spike of terror through her chest. Vernon had stormed out after striking her, headed toward the saloon where he would undoubtedly drink himself into an even more dangerous rage. But it was too early for his return. The sun had barely set. Eliza peered cautiously through the window, wincing as the movement stretched her bruised skin. A lone rider approached, his broad-shouldered silhouette unmistakable even in the fading light. Isaac Forrester, the newest ranch hand at the neighboring Fuller property, slowed his stallion as he passed her home. Isaac had arrived in Silver Creek just 2 months prior, a quiet man with intelligent eyes and hands calloused from honest work. They'd exchanged only brief pleasantries at the general store, but there had been something in his gaze that lingered, something that made Eliza both nervous and curious. He'd tipped his hat with a respectful nod, never pushing for conversation the way other men might when they encountered a married woman alone. Now, as his horse stopped completely in front of her house, Eliza felt her heart quicken. Something about the way he sat so straight in his saddle, alert and watchful, made her think he hadn't simply decided to rest his mount. A sharp knock at her door confirmed her suspicions. Eliza hesitated, her hand automatically moving to cover the discoloration on her face. Vernon would be furious if he discovered another man had called upon their home in his absence. "Mrs. Lawson?" Isaac's deep voice carried through the thin wooden door. "I apologize for the intrusion, but I noticed your lamp was lit. I wanted to make certain everything was all right." Eliza remained frozen, uncertain. Her instinct for self-preservation warned against answering, but something else, perhaps desperation, perhaps hope, urged her forward. "Mrs. Lawson?" he called again, softer this time. "I don't mean to alarm you. I saw Mr. Lawson at the saloon. He seemed—" There was a pause. "He seemed in quite a state." The implication was clear. Isaac knew, or at least suspected. Shame burned through Eliza, hot and suffocating. She pressed her palm more firmly against her cheek. "I'm fine, Mr. Forrester," she finally managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "Thank you for your concern." A moment of silence followed, and Eliza thought he might leave. Instead, his voice came again, gentle but insistent. "Madam, I'd feel better if I could see that for myself. I promise I won't stay long." Something in his tone, genuine concern without pity, broke through Eliza's resolve. She moved toward the door, steps hesitant, and opened it just enough to reveal half her face, keeping the bruised side hidden in shadow. Isaac stood on her porch, hat in hand, his dark hair catching the last rays of sunset. He was tall and lean, with the weathered face of a man who spent his days under the open sky. But it was his eyes that caught Eliza's attention, warm amber that held neither judgment nor the predatory interest she'd grown accustomed to from other men. "See? I'm perfectly fine," she said, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Isaac's gaze remained steady, unconvinced. "Mrs. Lawson, Eliza," she corrected automatically, then immediately regretted the familiarity. His expression softened. "Eliza, I don't wish to overstep, but—" He hesitated, clearly choosing his words carefully. "If you need any assistance, I want you to know that you can call on me." The simple offer of help, spoken without expectation, nearly undid her. Eliza felt tears burning behind her eyes and blinked rapidly to dispel them. "That's very kind, Mr. Forrester," but a sudden shift in the wind blew her door wider, illuminating her face fully in the lamplight. Isaac's expression hardened as he took in the purple bloom across her cheekbone, the split in her lower lip. "Did he do that to you?" The gentleness in his voice had been replaced by something colder, more dangerous. Eliza instinctively moved to close the door, but Isaac stepped forward, placing his hand on the wood to prevent it. "Please," he said, his tone softening again. "Let me help you." "You can't help me," Eliza whispered, the words catching in her throat. "No one can." "That's not true." His conviction was so strong that for a moment, Eliza almost believed him. "There's always a way out, Eliza." "He's my husband," she replied, the word tasting bitter on her tongue. "A husband who hurts his wife isn't worthy of the title." Isaac's jaw tightened, his fingers flexing at his sides. "How long has this been happening?" Eliza hesitated, the weight of her secret suddenly too heavy to bear alone. "Almost since the beginning," she admitted quietly. "But it's gotten worse this past year." Isaac's expression darkened. "Has anyone in town tried to help you?" A bitter laugh escaped her. "People see what they want to see, Mr. Forrester. Vernon is respected in Silver Creek. He owns half the businesses on Main Street. I'm just a woman who can't keep her house in order or give him children. That doesn't give him the right to lay hands on you," Isaac said firmly. The distant sound of raucous laughter drifted from the direction of town, and Eliza stiffened. "You need to go," she said urgently. "Vernon will be back soon, and if he finds you here, let him come," Isaac replied, a dangerous edge to his voice. "Please," Eliza begged. "I'll be in far worse trouble if he sees us talking." Something in her desperate tone seemed to reach him. Isaac nodded slowly, replacing his hat. "I'll go, but this isn't finished, Eliza." He reached into his pocket and pressed something small and cold into her palm. "Take this. If you need me, day or night, hang a white cloth from your back window. I'll see it from the Fuller place." Eliza looked down at the object in her hand, a small silver whistle on a leather cord. "I can't accept this." "You can," Isaac insisted. "And you will." His fingers closed gently around hers, the warmth of his skin a stark contrast to the cool metal between them. "Promise me you'll use it if you need help." The sincerity in his eyes weakened Eliza's resolve. "I promise," she whispered, though she had no intention of involving this kind stranger in her troubles. Isaac held her gaze for a moment longer before stepping back. "Remember what I said. He'll never touch you again if you don't want him to." With those words hanging in the air between them, he mounted his horse and disappeared into the gathering darkness, leaving Eliza clutching the whistle to her chest, her mind churning with impossible possibilities. The next morning dawned clear and cold, a crisp October sky stretching endlessly above Silver Creek. Eliza moved cautiously through her kitchen, wincing at the new bruises that had joined the old after Vernon's late-night return. He had been in a particularly foul mood, complaining about losses at the poker table and demanding to know if anyone had visited while he was gone. Eliza had lied, the denial falling easily from her lips after years of practice. Vernon had seemed satisfied, too drunk to notice the silver whistle she'd hastily hidden beneath the floorboards when she'd heard him approaching. Now, with Vernon having departed for his office at first light, she retrieved the whistle, turning it over in her hands, contemplating the promise it represented. The sound of a wagon approaching interrupted her thoughts. Eliza quickly tucked the whistle into her pocket and smoothed her skirts, preparing to greet whoever might be calling so early. To her surprise, it was Nora Livingston, the kindly widow who ran the millinery shop in town. At nearly 40, Nora had the distinction of being one of the few independent businesswomen in Silver Creek, respected despite her solitary status thanks to the substantial inheritance left by her late husband. "Good morning, Eliza," Nora called, her warm smile faltering slightly as she took in Eliza's appearance. "My goodness, child, what happened to your face?" Eliza's hand flew to her cheek. "I took a fall in the dark last night," she lied automatically. "Clumsy of me." Nora's expression made it clear she didn't believe this explanation for a moment, but she nodded, respecting Eliza's privacy. "Well, I've come to ask a favor. Mrs. Patterson is ill, and I'm short-handed at the shop. I wondered if you might be able to help me for a few days." Hope flickered in Eliza's chest. A reason to be away from home, a few days' reprieve from Vernon's unpredictable temper. "I'd love to help," she said quickly, "but Vernon, I've already spoken with your husband," Nora interrupted, a glint of satisfaction in her eye. "I caught him on his way to the office this morning. He agreed that since you don't have children to tend to, you could spare the time. I mentioned that I'd pay you, of course." The way Nora emphasized you made it clear that she understood Vernon would likely claim Eliza's earnings. Nevertheless, the opportunity to escape the suffocating confines of her home was too precious to refuse. "When would you like me to start?" Eliza asked, already reaching for her shawl. "Right now, if you're able," Nora replied, extending her hand to help Eliza into the wagon. The ride into town passed quickly, with Nora chatting amiably about the latest shipment of ribbons and feathers that had arrived from back east. Eliza nodded and smiled at appropriate intervals, but her mind was elsewhere, wondering if she might catch a glimpse of Isaac Forrester in town. As if summoned by her thoughts, Isaac appeared outside the mercantile just as Nora's wagon rolled past. Their eyes met briefly, and Eliza felt a jolt of something unfamiliar, not fear, but a warm, fluttering sensation that spread through her chest. Isaac tipped his hat, his expression carefully neutral, but Eliza didn't miss the way his gaze lingered on the bruises visible on her face despite her efforts to conceal them with her hair. The day at Nora's shop passed in a pleasant blur of fabric and feminine conversation. For the first time in years, Eliza felt almost normal, engaging with customers, offering opinions on trimmings and styles, laughing at Nora's witty observations about Silver Creek's social hierarchy. As closing time approached, Nora touched Eliza's arm gently. "You have a real eye for this work, my dear. The ladies respond to you." Eliza flushed with pleasure at the compliment. "Thank you for the opportunity, Mrs. Livingston." "Nora, please," the older woman insisted. "And the opportunity benefits us both." She hesitated, then added more softly, "You know, Eliza, if you ever need a place to stay, my home has plenty of room." The offer, made so casually yet loaded with meaning, brought tears to Eliza's eyes. "You're very kind," she managed. "It's not kindness," Nora replied firmly. "It's what decent people do for one another." She reached for her purse and counted out several coins. "Here's your pay for today. I'll see you tomorrow morning." Eliza nodded, grateful beyond words. As she stepped outside, the evening air crisp against her skin, she felt lighter than she had in months. The sensation lasted until she spotted Vernon leaning against a hitching post across the street. His eyes narrowed as he watched her emerge from the shop. "There's my devoted wife," Vernon called, loud enough to draw the attention of passers-by. "Working so hard while I slave away at the office." The mocking tone sent ice through Eliza's veins. Vernon pushed himself away from the post and crossed the street, his smile tight and dangerous. "I thought I'd escort you home, darling." Eliza's fingers closed around the coins in her pocket. "That's thoughtful of you, Vernon." His hand clamped around her upper arm, fingers digging into the flesh. "Isn't it, though? A husband looking after his wife." He leaned closer, his breath hot against her ear. "Hand over what the widow paid you." Reluctantly, Eliza surrendered the coins. Vernon pocketed them without counting, his grip on her arm never loosening as he steered her toward the road leading home. They had barely cleared the edge of town when Vernon's pleasant facade cracked. "Saw you looking at that cowboy this morning," he spat, giving her arm a painful twist. "The new hand from Fuller's place." Eliza's heart stuttered. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me." Vernon's voice rose sharply. "Thompson at the feed store told me he saw you making eyes at him. Said he tipped his hat to you like you were old friends." "It was just a polite greeting," Eliza protested. "I barely know the man." Vernon's laugh was ugly. "You think I'm a fool? I've seen the way men look at you, even with that plain face of yours. Always trying to take what's mine." The rage in his voice was escalating in a way Eliza recognized all too well. They were still a mile from home, too far from witnesses, too far from help. "Vernon, please," she began. But he cut her off with a sharp slap that sent her stumbling to her knees in the dirt. "Get up," he snarled. "We'll finish this discussion at home." Terror washed over Eliza as she realized what awaited her. Vernon's discussions had left her bedridden more than once. As she struggled to her feet, a sudden movement in the trees caught her attention. A rider, still as stone, watching from the shadows. "Isaac." Their eyes met across the distance, and Eliza saw his posture change, tension radiating from every line of his body. She gave an imperceptible shake of her head, silently pleading with him not to intervene. Vernon was unpredictable at the best of times. Confronting him now could end in bloodshed. To her relief, Isaac remained where he was, though she could see the effort it cost him in the rigid set of his shoulders. Vernon, oblivious to their silent exchange, grabbed her arm again and pulled her roughly forward. The walk home stretched endlessly, Vernon's tirade continuing unabated as darkness fell. By the time they reached their small house, Eliza was numb with fear, mechanically lighting lamps and preparing supper while Vernon drank directly from a bottle of whiskey. "I've been too lenient with you," he declared, his words slurring slightly. "Let you get ideas about your place." Eliza kept her eyes downcast, placing a plate of food before him without comment. Vernon ignored it, taking another long pull from his bottle. "Maybe it's time I reminded you who you belong to." The threat hung in the air between them, heavy and inevitable. Eliza thought of the silver whistle hidden beneath the floorboards and wondered if she would survive the night to use it. Vernon pushed his chair back abruptly, swaying as he stood. "Come here." Eliza didn't move, paralyzed by the knowledge of what was coming. "I said come here," Vernon roared, lunging forward to grab her hair. What happened next unfolded so quickly that Eliza would later struggle to recall the precise sequence of events. The door burst open with a splintering crack. Vernon whirled around, releasing his grip on Eliza in surprise. And then Isaac Forrester was there, filling the doorway, his expression a storm of controlled fury. "Get away from her," Isaac said, his voice dangerously soft. Vernon recovered from his shock quickly, his hand moving to the gun at his hip. "This is my house, Cowboy, and that's my wife you're interrupting me with." Isaac's eyes never left Vernon's face. "A man who beats his wife has no right to call her his." "That's where you're wrong," Vernon sneered. "The law says she's mine to do with as I please." "The law isn't here right now," Isaac replied evenly. "Just you and me." Vernon's fingers curled around his pistol. "And what exactly do you plan to do about it? You think you can just ride in and take another man's property?" "Eliza isn't property," Isaac said, his gaze briefly shifting to her. "She's a woman who deserves better than the likes of you." Vernon laughed, the sound harsh in the tense silence. "And I suppose you think you're better? A drifter with nothing to his name, but a horse, and whatever Fuller pays you." "I'm a man who doesn't need to hurt those weaker than himself to feel strong," Isaac replied, his hand hovering near his own weapon. Eliza watched in horror as Vernon's expression darkened, recognizing the dangerous glint in his eye that preceded his worst outbursts. "Vernon, please," she interjected, desperate to prevent bloodshed. "Mr. Forrester was just leaving." "No, he wasn't," Isaac contradicted her firmly. "I came here because I saw what happened on the road. I'm not leaving until I know you're safe." Vernon's face contorted with rage. "You've been watching my wife?" "Following her. I've been watching you," Isaac corrected. "And I've seen enough." Vernon drew his gun with surprising speed for a man half drunk, but Isaac was faster. The crack of a pistol shot echoed through the small house, and Vernon crumpled to the floor, clutching his shoulder as blood spread across his shirt. "You shot me," he gasped, more shocked than pained. "You actually shot me." Isaac kept his weapon trained on Vernon. "Be grateful I didn't aim for your heart." He glanced at Eliza. "Gather whatever you need. You're not staying here tonight." Eliza remained frozen, unable to process the rapid turn of events. Vernon was bleeding on her kitchen floor, and a man she barely knew was offering her escape. "Eliza," Isaac said more gently, "he'll never touch you again. That's a promise. But you need to decide right now if you're coming with me." The moment stretched between them, heavy with possibility. Eliza thought of the years of fear and pain, of dreams abandoned and hope extinguished. She thought of Nora's kind offer and Isaac's unwavering gaze. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, she felt something like courage stir within her chest. "Yes," she whispered, the single word carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken ones. "I'll come with you." Vernon's curses filled the air as Eliza moved swiftly around the small house, gathering her mother's silver locket, a few clothes, and the money she'd managed to hide away over the years, a pathetically small amount, but all she had to her name. "You'll regret this," Vernon spat, his face pale with pain and fury. "Both of you. I'll see to it." Isaac ignored him, keeping his gun steady. "The doctor will be by to tend that wound. I suggest you use the time to consider your options carefully. If anything happens to Eliza, if you so much as speak her name in town, you'll answer to me." The quiet certainty in his voice sent a chill through the room. Even Vernon seemed to sense the dangerous edge to Isaac's words, falling silent as Eliza completed her preparations. "I'm ready," she said, clutching her small bundle to her chest. Isaac nodded, holstering his weapon but keeping a wary eye on Vernon as he escorted Eliza from the house. His horse waited patiently outside, a magnificent chestnut stallion that stomped restlessly as they approached. "I'll take you to Nora Livingston's," Isaac said, helping Eliza onto the saddle before mounting behind her. "She'll keep you safe tonight." The solid warmth of him at her back felt like a shield as they rode away from the only home Eliza had known for 3 years. She expected to feel grief, or fear, or even regret. Instead, with each hoofbeat carrying her farther from Vernon, a strange lightness expanded in her chest, the first fragile tendrils of freedom taking root. Nora received them without surprise, ushering Eliza inside with a motherly arm around her shoulders while Isaac explained the situation in low, urgent tones. "You'll stay with me as long as you need," Nora assured Eliza, guiding her toward a comfortable bedroom. "And tomorrow we'll speak to the sheriff." Eliza's stomach knotted at the thought. Vernon has friends in town. Powerful friends. "And you have people who care about you," Nora countered firmly. "More than you realize." After Nora had left her to rest, Eliza stood by the window, watching as Isaac prepared to depart. He looked up, seeming to sense her gaze, and for a moment their eyes held across the distance. Then he tipped his hat, a gesture both respectful and oddly intimate, before mounting his horse and disappearing into the night. Eliza slept better that night than she had in years, despite the uncertainty of her future. Morning brought the sheriff, a grizzled man named Harland who listened to her account with unreadable eyes. To her surprise, he nodded gravely when she finished. "Vernon Lawson's had this coming for some time," he admitted. "You're not the first woman I've seen with bruises she couldn't explain away, though you're the first brave enough to speak up." "What will happen to him?" Eliza asked, her voice steadier than she felt. The sheriff sighed. "That depends. If he's smart, he'll realize he's lost this round and let you go without further trouble. If not," he shrugged, "well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it." The days that followed passed in a blur of activity. Eliza continued working at Nora's shop, finding unexpected joy in the creative aspects of millinery. Vernon remained conspicuously absent from town, and rumors circulated that he'd left for Denver to seek medical treatment for his wounded shoulder. 2 weeks after her escape, Isaac appeared at the shop just before closing, hat in hand, looking uncharacteristically hesitant. "Miss Eliza," he greeted her, the formal address acknowledging her changed status. "I hope I'm not intruding." Eliza's heart quickened at the sight of him. "Not at all, Mr. Forrester. In fact, I've been hoping to thank you properly for your intervention." Nora discreetly busied herself in the back room, leaving them alone among the displays of ribboned bonnets and veiled hats. "No thanks necessary," Isaac said, turning his hat in his hands. "I only did what any decent man would have done." "We both know that's not true," Eliza replied softly. "Most men would have looked the other way. You didn't." A hint of color touched Isaac's weathered cheeks. "I couldn't," he admitted. "Not when it was you." The simple declaration hung between them, laden with unspoken meaning. "I came to tell you that Vernon sold his businesses," Isaac continued after a moment. "Packed up and left town 3 days ago. Word is he's headed to California." Relief washed over Eliza, so powerful it nearly brought her to her knees. "He's gone? Truly gone?" Isaac nodded. The sheriff made it clear his welcome in Silver Creek had worn thin. "Seems Vernon had made enemies beyond just me." "I can hardly believe it," Eliza whispered. "After all this time, to be free of him." "You deserve that freedom," Isaac said earnestly. "And more." Their eyes met, and Eliza felt that same flutter in her chest she'd experienced the first time she saw him. Only now, without fear shadowing every thought, she recognized it for what it was. Attraction, yes, but also possibility, the chance for something new to grow where only pain had existed before. "Mr. Fuller has offered me a permanent position," Isaac said, his gaze never leaving hers, "as foreman of his ranch." "That's wonderful news," Eliza replied sincerely. "He's fortunate to have you." "The position comes with a small house," Isaac continued, the words coming more quickly now, as if he feared losing his nerve. "Nothing fancy, but solid. Private. Eliza's breath caught as she realized where this conversation was heading. I know it's too soon. Isaac hurried on. You've only just regained your independence. The last thing you need is another man making claims on your future. But I thought, that is, I hoped you might allow me to call on you. Properly. The earnestness in his expression made Eliza's heart swell. I'd like that very much, she said, her voice steady despite the emotions threatening to overwhelm her. Isaac's smile transformed his face, erasing the habitual gravity and revealing a warmth that made Eliza's pulse quicken. I'll do right by you, Eliza. That's a promise. I believe you, she replied, and realized with a start that she truly did. As winter settled over Silver Creek, Eliza flourished under her newfound freedom. She moved into a small room above Nora's shop, paying rent with her earnings and saving the rest. Isaac called on her regularly, their courtship unfolding with a gentle patience that allowed Eliza to heal from the wounds of her past, both visible and invisible. They took Sunday afternoon rides across the rolling plains surrounding Silver Creek, picnicked by the river when weather permitted, and spent quiet evenings in Nora's parlor, talking about everything and nothing. Eliza learned that Isaac had grown up in Missouri, the son of a blacksmith, and had headed west after losing his parents to influenza. He learned that she had dreamed of becoming a schoolteacher before circumstances and Vernon had derailed her plans. It's not too late, Isaac told her one crisp December evening as they walked back from a church social. The town's growing. They'll need a proper school soon enough. The casual way he spoke of her future, as if her dreams mattered, as if she had the right to pursue them, never failed to touch Eliza deeply. Christmas Eve found them standing on the porch of Nora's home, snowflakes drifting lazily from a velvet sky. Isaac had presented Eliza with a delicate silver bracelet, a gift that had clearly cost him dear. It reminded me of you, he said as he fastened it around her wrist. Beautiful but strong. Eliza touched the gleaming links with reverent fingers. It's perfect, she whispered. Her own gift to him had been a hand-knit scarf, modest compared to his extravagance, but Isaac had received it as if she'd offered him gold. As they stood close in the gentle snowfall, Eliza felt the last vestiges of her fear melt away. She had spent so long believing love was a trap, a pretty lie that ended in pain. Now she understood it could also be this, tender and patient, built on respect rather than possession. Isaac, she said softly, would it be terribly forward of me to say I've fallen in love with you? His sharp intake of breath was visible in the cold air. Eliza, he replied, his voice rough with emotion. I've loved you since the moment I saw you pretending those bruises didn't hurt. She reached up to touch his face, marveling at the freedom to do so. You saw me when no one else would look. I'll always see you, he promised, his arms encircling her waist with exquisite gentleness. If you'll let me. Their first kiss was soft and sweet, a promise exchanged without words. When they parted, Eliza saw her future reflected in Isaac's eyes, not a cage, but an open horizon, filled with possibilities. Spring brought new beginnings to Silver Creek. The snow melted, revealing tender green shoots pushing through the softened earth. Eliza, with Nora's encouragement, applied for the position of schoolteacher and was accepted, her intelligence and gentle manner winning over even the most skeptical members of the town council. On a perfect May afternoon, with wildflowers painting the prairie in a riot of colors, Eliza Lambert became Eliza Forrester in a simple ceremony attended by the friends who had become her family. Nora wept openly as she adjusted Eliza's veil, and even Sheriff Harlan dabbed suspiciously at his eyes during the exchange of vows. Isaac's hands were steady as he placed the gold band on Eliza's finger, his voice unwavering as he promised to love, honor, and cherish her for all his days. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, the kiss they shared was a testament to how far they had come, and all that lay ahead. That evening, as twilight painted the sky in shades of lavender and gold, Isaac carried Eliza across the threshold of their small home on Fuller's Ranch. The rooms were modest but comfortable, filled with simple furniture Isaac had crafted himself during the winter months. "Welcome home, Mrs. Forrester," he said, setting her gently on her feet. Eliza looked around at the home they would build together, at the man who had shown her what love truly meant, and felt a sense of peace settle deep in her soul. "It's perfect," she said, taking his hand. Everything is perfect. As night fell over the Wyoming plains, wrapping their small house in a blanket of stars, Eliza and Isaac began writing the first chapter of a story very different from the one she had known before, a story of healing, of growth, and of a love strong enough to chase away the shadows of the past. 5 years later, Eliza stood on the porch of their expanded home, watching as Isaac taught their 3-year-old son Thomas to ride his first pony in the fenced yard. Their infant daughter Emily slept peacefully in her arms, tiny fingers curled around her mother's thumb. The bruises Vernon had left had long since faded, but Eliza never forgot them, not as scars to be ashamed of, but as reminders of her own strength. She had survived, had rebuilt, had found a life filled with joy where once there had been only fear. As Isaac looked up, catching her gaze across the yard, his smile was as warm and true as it had been on their wedding day. In that smile, Eliza saw everything she had once thought beyond her reach: love, respect, partnership, family. "Look, Mama," Thomas called as he balanced proudly on the gentle pony. "I'm riding like Papa." "I see you, my brave boy," Eliza called back, her heart full to bursting. Isaac crossed to the porch, mounting the steps to stand beside her. His arms slipped around her waist, drawing her close as they watched their son's antics. "Happy?" he asked softly, pressing a kiss to her temple. Eliza leaned into his embrace, savoring the strength that had never once been turned against her. "More than I ever dreamed possible." As the sun began its descent toward the distant mountains, painting the prairie in gold, Eliza Forrester offered a silent prayer of gratitude for second chances, for courage found in darkest moments, and for the cowboy who had kept his promise. Her husband would never touch her again, but Isaac would hold her with gentle hands for all their days to come.